Okay, guys, John back with another video on the anti-guru, and this time being simultaneously recorded with my podcast, The Planning Game, because joining me is a proper guru, a real guru, someone that I hold up as a guru, because he is a developer first and a educator second. Matt Baker of the HMO Platform has joined me for a chat about HMOs because, what better to chat about on a Wednesday afternoon in the United Kingdom of Corona Land,
When the sun is shining.
where the sun is actually shining. Yeah,
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you, John.
that's all right. Pleasure
For
to
that.
have you on. Now, I hold you up as a proper guru, a real guru, someone who knows what they're doing, because you do know what you're doing. You're on development number what now? And HMO number what now? I've lost count.
We're in the 20s somewhere.
So, and how many rooms?
We're about 120, I think, at the moment.
So, reasonably experienced then.
Yeah, thank you for the intro, and I wouldn't say that I was necessarily a guru, um, but yeah, we've been doing it for about 4 years now, and grown a portfolio of buy-to-lets and HMOs, mainly HMO rooms and shared accommodation, what we call co-living. And well, actually, it's not all what I would call co-living. Some of it's the smaller HMOs, which we did maybe 4 years ago, and now we've got more of a co-living um, shared living ethos in our properties that we do today.
Hmm. Yeah, and but 120 rooms is a big old portfolio to manage. That's a,
Yes, it is. Yes.
and you're growing that this year by how many? How many are you going to add to that portfolio this year? What's the plan?
So our plan with that portfolio, actually, we've just taken a pause with everything going on. So our plans are changing. So we're not entirely sure how many we're going to add to it, because we are looking at some social housing elements as well. So doing
Hmm.
some social housing HMOs, some good quality, high spec stuff for social housing that will work financially, but also work for the tenants. And yeah, we are looking to do kind of over £1 million worth of those deals in the second half of this year. And then we are building up a pipeline over the next month or two, whilst we're in lockdown, and as we come out of lockdown, whenever that is, to find some more in the areas that we already invest. So growing that pool of tenants.
Cool. I mean, that I think is what sets, people like yourself and to a lesser degree, people like myself apart from others out in the education industry, isn't it? Because you're out there doing it, and as per the introduction, you're an HMO investor developer first.
Yeah.
That's what you do, and it just so happens that you've got an education business bolted onto the side of that, rather than the other way round, which is an education company first that might do a development, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to practice what you preach. If you are teaching someone about how to do an HMO, I think it's really important that you've been through those challenges. You've done it from the ground up. You understand the market today, not 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and um, and you understand the challenges. So it, I think it's great if you've had HMOs for years and years and years. There's the managing of HMOs, the developing of HMOs. Those two things are very different beasts. I think to
Yeah.
create an HMO and to manage an HMO, completely two separate things. And I think a lot of people focus too much on the creation of the HMO and less so on the management of the HMO. In fact, we've just done a survey with our clients and anyone that's interested out there in the world, maybe not in the world, but in the UK property market, about what they see as being the issues, and what they would want to learn about. And the things that come out the top in this information that we gathered over the last couple of weeks is that people want to know about the nuts and bolts of how to create it rather than the management. And that's absolutely great, and that is constantly changing, and we need to be aware of how that's changing, especially on the planning side, like you would know. But also, I think people need to be more aware about the management side and that longevity of income, that cash flow, that income that you can create long term, which is what pays the bills, it pays the mortgage, pays for the holidays, etc. And I think there's not enough focus, or people don't think about that longevity of income. So it has to be a maintained business, a sustainable business, not just here's a property, here it's done, hand it over to an agent, and then let the agent take care of it, and then you'll have no problems ever again. That's not the case.
Yeah. It's cool that we've got you online because we can deal with, I think, some common myths. Shall we deal with those?
Yeah.
That float around the courses that are out there. Okay, so let's see if we can't tease some of these out. One of the common myths that I see is that you can create a passive income from HMOs.
Okay.
Now, I would say that that's a fallacy because HMOs need management. What do you think? You've done it and lived it. I've only managed about 3 of the damn things, and I wouldn't want to do it again. But you tell me.
Agree massively. As just what I was saying there, it is the management of the HMO which creates the profit, the income. If it's badly managed, an HMO is a massive liability. So in order for it to be an asset, it's how you manage and systemize that side of the business to make it work. And that's something that I learned quite quickly. When I started my portfolio, I was managing it myself. It was painful. I didn't like doing it. I didn't like dealing with tenants on a day-to-day basis. So after about a year, I did bring on a management agent. And then I learned how to manage a management agent. And so managing tenants and managing agents, again, are slightly different. So you've still got to be on top of the managing agent. I think you do have to be aware of what they're doing. And, the best management agent in the world will be great for a period of time. And you've got to be on top of them because they will drop the ball at some point, or they'll grow their business to a point where it will, there'll be some weak points. And when you're when your property, let's say you've got 10 rooms, and the agent's managing 80 rooms, you're a decent amount of their income. When that agent suddenly goes up to 200, 300 rooms, you're suddenly less of a thing for them because they've got too many properties. So they're not going to be fussed about filling your rooms. The only people that are fussed about your rooms are you. So how can you benefit and how can you maximize that? So in answer to your question, it takes time. It's not a passive income. And if you believe it's a passive income, then it might be great for a small period of time, but that profit will go down over the long run unless you manage it well. You invest in your properties, because investing in your properties is investing in your tenants, and your tenants will pay you. It's a cycle. If you keep investing in and looking after your properties and looking after your tenants, then it will keep paying you, and you'll average out a much higher profit over the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next myth that I've seen floating around is that the only profitable HMO is a big HMO. So small HMOs don't work. Big HMOs are the only way to make any form of profit at all. Now, I know that to be wrong because I used to manage 4-bedroom HMOs. It's less profit, but the percentages were about there. And we were still making 25%. And we were doing that on a rent-to-rent basis. So what do you think? I mean, does it always have to be about the massive HMO?
No, and I think people that know us will know that we do larger ones, and we go for capital gain through planning permissions, and we do 7 beds, 8 beds, 22 beds, and just I'm going to look at both sides, but the larger ones there's an element of economy of scale. So your running costs don't go up at the same rate as your rent. So in theory, there is a higher probability of getting a higher return on cash. And also you can then pull out money as you refinance commercially. But actually, depending on the deal, depending on what you're doing, that has to be the right deal. But then again, you can do that right deal on a small scale. So, and you take a smaller property, you make it a 4-bed, 3-bed, maybe not a 3-bed, but a 4-bed or a 5-bed property. If that is managed well and you keep your running costs to a minimum, that can be just as profitable if you buy well and you get a good uplift because you bought well in the first place. And we've done we're in the middle of doing a tenant survey, and we like to ask people questions. I think that's really important. The shared living survey is out there at the moment, and tenants are filling it in to find out what they want. And currently, tenants don't want to be sharing facilities with more than 3 to 4 people. So if you've got a large, massive HMO, you've got to design it so that you're not sharing 10 people with one kitchen. You need to divide it up really cleverly so that the shared elements are less, but so that they can still commune and they can still socialize with everyone in a large space as well. So there's has to be a lot of thought to the design of these things. But a large one can profit more if it's the right one, and a small one can profit more if it's the right one, because you can mess a massive one up hugely. It's a lot more to go wrong in a massive one
Yes,
than in a smaller one.
Absolutely.
That's why we have a mixture.
Yeah. The next sort of myth that I see floating around is very much on the subject of, have HMOs moved on? So we see a lot of do as I do style training out there in the HMO market. You see a lot of model rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you see a horrendous amount of model rooms.
Oh, we've got some beautiful model rooms.
I know everyone has some stunning model rooms,
Yeah.
and they then tell their mentees to go and do that.
Yeah.
Just go and do that. Don't think about your marketplace. Just do that, because that model will work everywhere.
Yeah.
And I just cringe at that, because that's not doing your due diligence. That's not doing your homework on the area. You can't throw a pro HMO, say, into the middle of Workington in Cumbria, because there isn't any market for HMOs in Workington in Cumbria, and at the same time they're all working people. They're not blue collar workers. They're working men, so they're just going to want a room. They're not going to want all the bells and whistles. What do you think? Does a single model of HMO work everywhere?
No. So it's knowing your target market, it's knowing your demographic, knowing your tenant demand. It's so important. And again, as I just said, we survey our tenants. So our tenants in our existing properties, we survey them so that we know how to improve them. We're doing a national survey at the moment so that we can get a bit of a wider picture. But for anybody who's investing in HMOs anywhere, the best bit of free advice that I can give anyone is survey your tenants, ask them what they want, ask them, that needs to go alongside the tenant demand. So this working out that there's more rooms needed than rooms available. But again, the right type of room for the right type of tenant. So in one marketplace, because this is the myth I'm just going to throw out there. There's a myth out there that the HMO market is saturated. Yeah, and that is a big myth.
I would say that is a massive myth.
It's a massive myth, because there is a saturation of what you just described, John, which is the same product repeated over and over again, and in different locations without any thought given to the marketplace. And you know what? I'll put our hand up, and I'm not going to say that we've got ours all right. Our first 2.5 HMOs fall into that category of being a box with an ensuite, a small ensuite, and a grey feature wall, and a furniture pack. And that's what most people were doing. And you know what? In our marketplace 4 years ago, that was the top notch. That was the best thing since sliced bread. But then we raised the bar, and then everyone else came into the marketplace. Now those properties, they need a bit of love. And then now we're in a bit of a cycle where we're going to be investing a little bit into those properties to bring them back up to being the best in the market. We have a rule where it's called the 95-5 rule, whereby if you're in the top 5% of all HMOs in your area, then you'll always be full. A bit like the 80-20, but if you're in the top 20%, I don't think that cuts it. You've got to be in the top 5% to secure your longevity of people.
Yeah, it's all about retention. At the end of the day, you have to retain your market. And just like, retention is so important on YouTube, you have to retain your marketplace. Retention in HMOs is critical. You have to be in that top 5%. Otherwise, you're just swimming with the crowd. And that's where you get into that saturation, isn't it? The
Yeah.
crowd is very saturated. The rarefied atmosphere in the top 5% is actually there's very little saturation up there because no one ever gets there. No
Yeah.
one ever tries to get there because the myth of the standard furniture pack still perpetuates.
So in answer to your question, then HMOs have moved on and they are changing and changing dramatically.
Mm. The We're both educators at the end of the day. I'm a planner that does some education on the side. You're a HMO developer that does some education on the side.
Mm-hmm.
What do we think about the current breed? Let's go really controversial and say, what do we think about the current breed of educators? I'm going to use the word out there that are educators first. So they've learnt a strategy and then they're passing it on rather than are developers first that are developed and then teaching the skills that they've picked up. Is that the right way round?
Um, I come from an education background because as a piano player, I would I was playing piano, but then I was also teaching it. So, and I learned the most about playing the piano when I was teaching it.
Yeah.
Similarly, with being a developer, I did some education first. I'm a big believer in learn something, then do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we learned about it, then I implemented it, and now that I've implemented it, it's what part of my way of giving back. Yes, it's a business in its own right, but it is a way to help people and help people to avoid the mistakes that you see happening over and over and time again, which are so simple to avoid if people know what they're doing and they listen to the right people. So um, I think it is so important to practice what you preach. And I think if I stopped developing the type of properties that I was teaching about, I would probably stop teaching about them as well, or because I would become irrelevant in that marketplace. Um, if that makes sense, because the
No, no.
legislation would change. I can maybe continue to be an authority on the management of the properties, but then I wouldn't become an authority. I'd lose my relevance on the development side because the planning rules will change, the licensing rules will change for the creation of these things. Building regs changes. With so many challenges that are out there and coming our way. When it comes to HMO in particular, but property in general, that we've just got to be aware with our eyes wide open.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm very much the same as you, Matt. I can't see any relevance at all in a planner like myself not practicing
Mm-hmm.
because as long as I'm practicing, I'm learning and I'm learning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The one that we're dealing with you,
Mm-hmm.
that up in Stockport, that one, we learned something new this week, which is the brain cell of the planners in Stockport can really be that interesting. And that one got put in front of my planning solicitor, and I showed you the answer, and he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Right, never seen that one before. That's new." And the
Yep.
answer is, the condition they used is new. It's brand new for them. It's brand new for everyone. And now we're going
So
to have to learn how to deal with that.
yep.
And I can't know that. I can't learn that knowledge unless I've done it. That
Yep.
I think is the big differentiator. And that's why I call this vlog the anti-guru, because I don't call myself a guru. I call myself a practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it.
Yep.
And in so doing, I'm essentially passing on the learnings from doing.
Yep.
And it's kind of like you. We don't teach anything that's theoretical. We teach practical,
Yep.
because if we're teaching theoretical, then we're basically risking our clients' money on a theory, and that doesn't sound right. It
And I
doesn't
have to
feel
say,
right to me either.
because I started, I did a few different education courses, and one in particular inspired me quite a lot, but told me stuff that wasn't true. And that training is still out there,
Mm,
and it is concerning to see how people view commercial valuations. And another myth about commercial valuations on HMOs is that they will solve all your problems and you'll get massive uplifts and that kind of stuff. And on some deals that you really do, and we know how to do that, but you can't make an assumption that your commercial valuation is going to be the answer to all of your problems. And when I started in HMOs, my second, third HMO, we went for the commercial valuation and then were sorely disappointed because we got something different to what we told we were going to get by the course that I was on. So, and I learned very quickly that's not how it works, and it works very differently. The art of the commercial valuation is something that we have learned and consistently learning and constantly updating our knowledge, because like with the conditions we see on planning and the weird and wonderful things that councils will do and inspectors will do sometimes is you have to be there and learn about it so that we can either know how to battle it in future, and we can share that with our customers, our clients, our masterminders, so they don't go down that same route, or we find a way to fix it, prevent it in the future.
Or it's a straight avoidance strategy. That's the thing. How important do you think it is because again, this is something that irks me a lot. How important do you think it is for an investor to really know the area they're investing in? I mean, almost down to intimately know the area they're investing in. Because I see a lot of people, for example, say, oh, I'm going to invest in Castle Carey in Somerset. I know Castle Carey. My business
That's where
partner,
I got stuck there on the way to Glastonbury last year.
Exactly. Castle Carey is basically a geriatric farm. And hi to people in Castle Carey. But everyone knows Castle Carey is filled with old people. It's a small town between Shepton Mallet and somewhere else.
Apart from when Glastonbury's on.
Apart from when Glastonbury's
on. The population of Castle Carey goes up by about 100,000.
Exactly. So it's a one event town. Yeah. It would be the same thing as, someone turning around and saying, I'm going to invest in Dorking. Dorking's my hometown in Surrey. You'd ask them why? Well, property values in Dorking are excellent. Yes, but property never changes hands in Dorking. You buy a property in Dorking and then you die there, and then your children die there, and then their children die there. And basically it's a giant factory for dead people. It's my hometown. I can take the piss out of it as much as I want to. It's my hometown. But that's the thing. You wouldn't do an HMO there because the property values are sky high. Even though the rental values are excellent, there's no market for HMOs because there's no, there isn't a really good market for HMOs because there's no young population to fill them, and there aren't any other sort of marketplaces that ticks the box. It's a commuter town. So how, that's almost the example really. It's really knowing that area intimately. It comes back to you can do HMOs anywhere argument. Probably can, but you have to know something about the town first.
Well, yeah, I would agree that an element of shared living can happen anywhere, and shared living might not technically be an HMO. For example, in Dorking, your shared living might be a retirement facility, might be something designed for the over 60s, over 65s, could be an HMO, could be a care home, but it depends on your market. It comes back to knowing your area, as you said. How well do you need to know your area? You need to know it like the back of your hand. You need to know who's living there, what the demographics are, and I think it's young professionals are the ones that are big in the HMO market, but it's not necessarily the only type of tenant. And this was demonstrated quite amazingly when we went to meet the operators of the Collective in London, who are a very large HMO, a sui generis HMO, 550 bedrooms in Old Oak Common. And they again believed that they were going to have mainly youngsters in that property, and then over the 5, 6, 7 years they've had it, that population has changed to almost be a microcosm of society. So you have 21-year-olds there, and you have 65-year-olds there in that property, who either live and work in the building, or they commute. So I think that actually that there is a marketplace for shared living for every age group. And I think some people choose to live in HMOs, choose to live in shared accommodation. Some people are forced into that situation through financial means, but some tenants absolutely love the flexibility that it gives them.
Yeah.
So, I think that there is a market for some type of shared living in most towns. So it depends what your market is. So you have to know that.
Yeah, but that's the
Have
thing.
to
You
know
have
it.
to absolutely know that market.
And
It's
if you
almost
don't know it,
intuitive.
ask the question. Ask the people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Cool. That's been. I mean, it's been brilliant so far having you on. So thank you very much
Yeah,
for joining me on this. So, what are
no
the
problem.
biggest lessons learned from your HMO journey, as it were, your adventure into
The
the world
adventure.
of shared living, aside from don't invest in Stockport or anywhere near Manchester. And
Stockport is actually a really great place to invest. It's just got a very strange planning authority.
it does have a very strange planning authority that appears to just be filled with people who are temps. As far as I can tell, there's only one or two permanent members of staff at Stockport, and the rest are just temps.
Well, the thing is, I absolutely love Stockport. I think it's a great place that's got so much potential, and this is why I have this split thing. We're going actually, why the council? Why do the council appear to be difficult in a lot of ways? And
Mm,
at the end of the day, there are just people doing their job, and if anyone from Stockport Planning Department watches this, I think it's not a case of individual personalities. I think it is down to policy and maybe misinterpreting a policy or maybe misinterpretation of intentions as well by developers and landlords, because most investors and landlords have the right intention by their tenants.
mm.
Um, but yeah, that question. What's the question again?
So, biggest lesson learned.
Biggest lesson learned.
We'll deal with biggest regret in a minute.
No, know thy tenant. That's
Know thy tenant. I
that
actually
is.
really like that one. I really
I'm
like.
writing that down. I'm actually making notes as we go because there's some stuff I can put out on social. It's quite good. Know thy tenant.
Know
Um,
thy tenant.
well, because we're talking to landlords, we talk about and on the kind of the coaching side and training side is you want tenants that pay and tenants that stay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sorry, tenants that stay are the tenants that pay. So you create that environment where they want to stay and they want to pay, and you get to know that by knowing thy tenant. Um, Other lessons learned: adapt. You have to adapt with the market. Don't be one of these landlords that bought an HMO in the 80s and now is struggling to rent it, so then decides to sell it. I think people have it easy, they have it good for a period of time, and then it gets harder because they don't keep on top of it. They
Yeah.
moan when legislation changes. They moan when they have to pay for a license because they've not budgeted for it. They've not worked that. They've not thought about it. They're not dealing with it like a business. So that'd be my other
Mm-hmm.
lesson: is actually if you treat your portfolio like a hobby, it'll pay you like a hobby. If you treat it
Mm-hmm.
like a business, it'll pay you like a business. It's not yet. It doesn't have to be a full-time job, but a good few hours a week, just on keeping on top of what's happening, keeping on top of your cash flow, keeping on top of your agents, and if you're managing them yourself, employ somebody to do that bit for you. Don't be a full-time manager. I say work with really good people. So that does require some economy of scale in order to do that. So I'd say
Yeah.
also, don't be afraid of going to some scale. If you're going to do one or two HMOs, and that's all you're intending to do, I wouldn't bother. If you're planning to do 5 to 10, that's where it might start to make a difference. But if you're only planning to do one or two for your retirement, don't bother because it will cost you more than it's worth. You've
And
got to
that,
really
and that
start. Yeah.
that I think really nails into the final myth of HMOs, which is how I like to put it, which is one or two just doesn't screw.
Yeah.
You have to scale HMOs as a business, and there's no. I've seen and you have to stick with the strategy, because I see HMO landlords all the time, and I'm sure you do as well, saying, "Oh, I've got 3 or 4 HMOs. It doesn't quite pay my way, but I'm able to survive just about ish, maybe on the income, but now I want to go and do development. Now I want to go and do something else. And you look at them and say, but you've got an embryonic business there.
Mm.
It's just about getting you there. But if there's a downturn, if one of those HMOs dies, then your lifeline is gone, right? Why aren't you scaling the business that you have first?
I think that's a really good point. And on this survey that we did with our customer base, our clients, we were asking what people's biggest challenges are right now. And the interesting thing is the biggest challenges that people are having right now are the same challenges they would have had a year ago, 6 months ago. They've just been massively amplified by the stress, by the uncertainty, what's happening out there. So the issues are the same. And if you look at our portfolio, for example, the issues within our portfolio are quite minimal. But where there are issues, it's where there were issues 6 months ago. So, for example, with tenants that, so in our Warrington portfolio, we have 2 tenants who are not very good at paying. So they're constantly in and out of arrears. We're not going to evict them. They always kind of make it back up again. They're just not as good as managing their cash as they could have been. And as soon as this happened, everybody paid apart from those 2, who were, again, bad at managing their cash flow. So it doesn't make it. I think you're right in the fact that you have to get to a point where you can sustain periods, down periods. And I think in most down periods, you don't get this. Like, this is completely unique. What we're in now hasn't, we've not seen this before. And
we've not seen a plague like this since Black Death.
Where you had to stay home. It's so even in other recessions, you're able to move tenants in and out freely, and people are still moving. And people that have incomes are paying rents they can afford to pay. People that lose their jobs are paying rents that they can afford to pay on the housing authority, and the market keeps moving. What's happened here is that the market is just stopped, and then is pausing, and then it's not going to fall over. It starts to fall over, and it will pick back up again. But it's the people that have the issues already. So I see it in a couple of people that I know who are doing their first 2 HMOs, and both of them, one of them got up and running a month beforehand, only had 2 tenants in, both of whom who work for an airline, and then the other one literally got finished the week before lockdown. So out of what will be 12 rooms in 2 properties, 2 very nice properties, he's getting 0 income.
Yeah.
So, but that's completely through no fault of his own. He's done everything right, but he is suffering now because of that. But again, as soon as this lifts, he's got great properties in good locations. They'll pick back up again. But that's unfortunate for him. But I think if that's your entire portfolio, and your entire portfolio is like this constantly, and you bought the wrong thing in the wrong place, and you've only got 2 or 3 properties, I think that actually, it can be quite risky. So view it professionally, run it like a business, use professional help, and the right professionals, whether that's your planning experts, your architects, your interior designers, your depending on what you're good at, what you're not good at, use those professional teams. Have someone to bounce ideas off. I'd always suggest having a coach or knowing someone who's good at this stuff, who's doing it well. And that's not to promote what we do at all. It's literally, you go and speak to someone, but just when you're identifying who you want to work with, just make sure that they're doing it and they're doing it now.
Yeah, no, and that kind of brings us full circle, because that's essentially the message from certainly the Anti-Guru series that I've been putting out. And I'm putting out
Anti-Guru versus Uncle Guru.
An Anti-Guru versus Uncle Guru, yeah, absolutely. Is absolutely pick an educator, pick a mentor, pick a guide, however you want to describe it, who can demonstrate that they've done it, and as you say, are doing it right now. They're in that industry, actively doing the job that they say they are doing, rather than having been in that industry many years ago and everything's moved on, or as some have been on a course themselves and gone, oh, that's a good idea, right, I'll train that. So it's almost I was going to use the phrase train the trainer idea rather than anything else. But no, thank you for that, Matt. That's been absolutely brilliant. Matt obviously runs his own program. It's not really a course, it's more of a program on HMOs, which is what really attracts, because it's not just about the one hit wonder, is it? It's about the mentoring throughout the life cycle of a property development journey, which I think is so important. If people want to get hold of you, Matt, how do they do it? We'll obviously put for YouTube, we'll put a link in the description below so you can get hold of Matt. But for the people who are listening in on Dave, how do you get hold of Matt Baker?
Well, you can contact me via email, just send matt@scottbakerproperties.co.uk, or you can email, or you can hit me up on Instagram or Facebook, everywhere. LinkedIn.
He literally is everywhere. And when's the new album coming out?
New album was due to come out in June, but because of this lockdown, we've postponed. We're actually going to chat about that tonight. We're trying to find some people that can record from their homes. They've got the right gear.
You're going to do some clever Zoom album recording. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's very. We are in different places, and some Brighton, some Nottingham, some Worthing, some York, one in Switzerland, Madrid.
That's one hell of a commute to go and do some recording. Mind you, I think Switzerland still has their border open. I'm pretty sure they do. Anyway, cool. Thank you very much, Matt, for joining me. This has been a live recording of the Anti-Guru by John McDermott. You can find me at tpexpert.org, and a recording of The Planning Game, also by John McDermott. And you can find that on all good podcasting channels. Thank you very much for watching and listening. See you later.
Thanks, John. Bye, guys.